Marcus's smile tightened. Victoria, I was just saying how sweet it is that you maintain these childhood connections. She linked her arm through Marcus's possessively. Though I'm sure Rick has other friends more suited to his lifestyle? You don't belong here, my friend's fiancée said, her voice cutting through the classical music and champagne laughter. Just having you at our engagement party makes the whole event look cheap. I stood there in my hoodie and jeans, invitation in hand, watching my childhood best friend's fiancée look at me like I was something she'd scraped off the bottom of her designer heels. The crystal chandeliers overhead cast expensive light across marble floors, and every person in that country club ballroom wore suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Except me. But Victoria, Marcus's bride-to-be, had no idea who she was really talking to. And she was about to find out why you should never, ever judge someone by what they're wearing. Before we get into what happened next, drop your location in the comments. And if you've ever been completely underestimated because of how you looked or what you did for a living, this story is for you. Let me back up to 3 weeks earlier. I was sitting in a cafe in Singapore, laptop open, reviewing pitch decks from startups in Southeast Asia. My life is simple. I travel the world, meet founders, invest in companies I believe in, and move on to the next city. No office. No suits. Just a backpack, a laptop, and enough curiosity to keep me moving. People see the hoodie and assume I'm some kind of digital nomad barely scraping by. That assumption has served me well. My assistant called around midnight Singapore time. Boss, you got mail at the apartment. Looks important. What kind of mail? Fancy envelope. Like, really fancy. The kind rich people use for weddings. I told her to open it and read it to me. When she got to the names, Marcus Chen and Victoria Hartwell, I almost dropped my coffee. Marcus. My best friend from elementary school. The kid I'd spent countless afternoons with in his parents' garage, both of us hunched over laptops, teaching ourselves to code because we were too impatient to wait for college. We'd been inseparable back then. Two kids with big dreams and no idea how to achieve them. But we drifted apart after his company went public 5 years ago. His life became board meetings and Forbes interviews. Mine became coffee shops and airplane tickets. We'd text occasionally, but it wasn't the same. I'd convinced myself that's just what happened when people grew up and their lives took different directions. There's a handwritten note at the bottom, my assistant said. It says, "Brother, I need you there. Please come. M." I booked a flight home that night. The thing is, Marcus and I shared something nobody else knew about. Something that made his success partially mine, though he'd begged me to keep it secret. 20 years ago, when we were just kids in that garage, I'd made my first real money. I'd built a website, nothing fancy, just a tool that helped small businesses manage inventory, and sold it for $50,000. At 16 years old, that felt like winning the lottery. Marcus had an idea back then. A platform that would revolutionize how small businesses handled logistics. He had the vision but no funding. His parents thought coding was a hobby, not a career. They wanted him to focus on getting into a good college, not waste time on internet nonsense. So I gave him the money. All of it. We shook hands in that garage and drew up a simple contract on notebook paper. I'd get 15% of whatever he built. We were kids. We had no idea what we were doing. But we signed it anyway, and I watched him pour everything into building that company. When his platform went public 5 years ago, my 15% stake became worth $500 million. But Marcus made me promise to stay anonymous. He knew I hated attention, hated the spotlight. So on all the official paperwork, I was just R. Chen, a silent investor, a name on documents that nobody questioned. The board knew the name. They just didn't know the face behind it. And I'd kept that promise. Even as his company grew. Even as he became a CEO featured in business magazines. I stayed in the background, living my simple life, traveling the world in hoodies and jeans. But now he was getting married, and he needed me there. Of course I'd go. The flight back felt longer than usual. I kept wondering about this Victoria person. Marcus had mentioned her a few times over the past year, corporate lawyer, came from old money, very connected in business circles. He seemed happy. I was happy for him. I had no idea what I was walking into. The engagement party was at the Sterling Heights Country Club, the kind of place where you needed to know someone just to get through the front gate. I pulled up in my 15-year-old sedan, parking between a Bentley and a Mercedes that probably cost more than most houses. The valet looked at my car like it was contaminated. "Are you sure you're at the right event?" he asked carefully. I showed him the invitation. He blanched and took my keys without another word. Inside, everything screamed money. Not the new money kind that's flashy and loud. The old money kind that's quiet and confident and doesn't need to prove anything. Crystal chandeliers hung from 30-foot ceilings. A string quartet played in the corner. The air smelled like expensive perfume and aged whiskey. Everyone wore evening gowns and tailored suits. And there I was in my jeans and hoodie, the same outfit I'd worn to close a $10 million investment deal in Mumbai 2 months ago. People stared. I didn't care. I was here for Marcus, not for them. I spotted him across the room, talking to a group of older men in suits. He looked different. More polished. His hair was styled perfectly, his suit probably custom-made. But when our eyes met, his whole face lit up with that same smile I remembered from when we were kids. He started walking toward me, but before he could reach me, a woman intercepted him. She was tall, elegant, with dark hair pulled back in a style that probably had a fancy name I didn't know. Her dress looked like it cost more than a car. And she was looking directly at me with an expression I recognized immediately, disgust masked as polite curiosity. She whispered something to Marcus. He looked at me, then back at her, his smile fading slightly. They started walking over together. That's when I knew this was going to be interesting. Rick. Marcus pulled me into a hug. It felt genuine, warm, like no time had passed at all. I'm so glad you made it. How was Singapore? Hot. Productive. Congratulations, man. Big step. Thanks. Rick, this is Victoria. Victoria, this is Rick, my best friend from way back. Victoria extended her hand with the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. How lovely to finally meet you. Marcus has mentioned you a few times. Her handshake was cold, brief. She looked me up and down, her expression shifting from polite interest to barely concealed judgment. Forgive my appearance, I said, keeping my voice light. Just got off a long flight. Oh, don't worry about it, she said, but her tone suggested I should absolutely worry about it. Marcus collects old friends like some people collect vintage watches. Sentimental value, you know. The question hung in the air like a challenge. I make friends wherever I go, I said simply. It's part of what I do. And what is it that you do, exactly? Her eyes glittered with something that wasn't quite curiosity. More like the look a cat gives a mouse before pouncing. Before I could answer, someone called Marcus's name from across the room. Victoria steered him away with a practiced smile, leaving me standing alone. Over her shoulder, as they walked away, she turned back and mouthed 2 words that were crystal clear, stay away. I should have left right then. Should have made an excuse and walked out. But something about the way she dismissed me, the way she'd looked at me like I was nothing, it triggered something I hadn't felt in years. I decided to stay. The dinner seating arrangement told me everything I needed to know about how Victoria saw me. Marcus and Victoria sat at the head table with what I assumed were her parents and important business associates. I was seated 3 tables away, between someone's elderly uncle who kept falling asleep and a teenager who spent the entire meal on his phone. Dinner was 7 courses of food I couldn't identify, served on plates that probably cost more than my laptop. The conversation at my table was sparse. The uncle snored softly. The teenager scrolled through social media. A woman across from me, someone's cousin, I gathered, kept glancing at me curiously. You're the childhood friend? She finally whispered. Guilty. Don't let Victoria get to you. She's like this with everyone who isn't from her world. She paused. Actually, she's like this with most people from her world too. She's just better at hiding it with them. Before I could respond, the sound of a knife tapping against crystal echoed through the room. Victoria stood at the head table, microphone in hand, smiling that smile that was all teeth and no warmth. Thank you all so much for being here tonight, she began. Marcus and I are so fortunate to be surrounded by such accomplished individuals. CEOs, partners at top firms, university professors, entrepreneurs who've changed industries. She paused, scanning the room. Her eyes found mine like a heat-seeking missile. We believe in excellence. In surrounding ourselves with people who inspire us to be better. People who've achieved great things through hard work and dedication. Another pause. The room was silent except for the quiet clink of silverware. Of course, success comes in many forms. Some people take alternative paths. Marcus is incredibly loyal, it's one of the things I love about him. He maintains friendships with people from all walks of life. She turned to look directly at my table. Rick, darling, you're here tonight, how wonderful. Marcus tells me you two go way back. Where did you complete your studies? I don't think I caught that earlier. Every eye in the room turned to me. I could feel the heat rising in my face, not from embarrassment, but from anger I was barely controlling. I didn't complete them, I said clearly. I dropped out of Stanford my freshman year. A few gasps. Uncomfortable coughs. People shifted in their chairs. Victoria's smile widened. How brave. Still chasing the entrepreneur dream? That's so admirable, isn't it everyone? She started a round of applause that felt more like mockery than support. Marcus and I were just talking about expanding our scholarship fund. Clearly, the need is greater than we thought. Laughter rippled through certain tables. Not genuine laughter, the kind people use when they sense blood in the water and want to be on the winning side. I looked at Marcus. He was staring at his plate, jaw clenched, knuckles white around his wine glass. But he didn't say anything. Didn't defend me. Didn't tell Victoria to stop. That hurt more than anything she'd said. Victoria continued her speech, moving on to other topics, but I wasn't listening anymore. I excused myself quietly and walked out to the parking lot, needing air, needing space, needing to think. The night was cool, clear. I could hear the music from inside, muffled and distant. I stood by my car, hands in my pockets, trying to decide if I should just leave now or wait until after the party to say goodbye to Marcus. The click of heels on pavement made me turn. Victoria stood there, arms crossed, no longer smiling. This was a different person from the one inside. The mask was off. "Let me be direct," she said. "You're a problem." "Excuse me?" Marcus is about to enter a new phase of his life. Corporate boards. Political connections. The kind of social circles that determine whether a company succeeds or fails at the highest levels. She took a step closer. "You, in your hoodies and failed startups, you're dragging him backward. We've been friends for 20 years. And I'm going to be his wife. I've worked very hard positioning him in the right circles, cultivating the right relationships. I can't have some college dropout childhood friend embarrassing us at important events." The casual cruelty in her voice was almost impressive. This wasn't emotional. This was calculated. "So here's what's going to happen," she continued. "You're going to disappear. Quietly. Gradually. Stop accepting invitations. Stop calling. Fade out like childhood friends do when people grow up. And if I don't?" Her smile returned, but this one was sharp as a knife. "Then I'll make sure every professional contact Marcus has knows about his charity case friend. The one who's been leeching off his success, showing up at events inappropriately dressed, making everything awkward. I'm very good at controlling narratives, Rick. It's what I do for a living. I've convinced juries of things that weren't true. Imagine what I can do with something that has a kernel of truth." She turned to leave, then paused. "Marcus doesn't need you anymore. He has me now. And unlike you, I can actually help his career." She walked back toward the building, heels clicking like gunshots on the pavement. I stood there for a long moment, watching her go. Then I pulled out my phone and called my assistant. "I need a background check," I said when she answered. "Everything you can find. And I mean everything." 3 days later, I was sitting in my apartment, 3 computer monitors arranged on my desk, when the file came through. Victoria Chen. 32 years old. Corporate lawyer at Whitmore & Associates, one of the most prestigious firms in the city. Graduated top of her class from an Ivy League law school. By all appearances, successful, connected, exactly the kind of person someone like Marcus would be lucky to marry. But there was a pattern in her history that made my skin crawl. 5 years ago, relationship with David Thornton, tech CEO. Lasted 8 months. Ended when Victoria secured a position on the board of his company. Relationship ended 2 weeks after she got the position. 3 years ago, relationship with James Hawthorne, hedge fund manager. Lasted 6 months. During that time, Victoria made partner at her firm using connections James provided. Relationship ended 1 month after her partnership was announced. 18 months ago, relationship with Richard Kemp, real estate developer. Lasted 4 months. Victoria's firm took on his company as a client, giving her a massive book of business. Relationship ended 3 weeks later. And now Marcus. CEO of a rapidly growing logistics company. Victoria's firm was in the middle of negotiating the Thornton merger, Marcus's biggest deal yet. If it went through, it would triple the company's valuation. And Victoria would be positioned perfectly to make senior partner. But it was the emails that made me sick. My investigator had access to screenshots from a group chat, Victoria and 3 of her law school friends. The messages went back months. Playing the supportive fiancé is exhausting, but the partnership requires this level of client relationship. Thank God Marcus is too trusting to ask questions. He proposed last night. Ring's actually nice. The merger should close in 4 to 6 months, then I can exit gracefully. His childhood friends are so embarrassing. There's one especially, college dropout who dresses like he's homeless. I'll need to cut him out before he damages M's reputation and by extension, mine. I read those messages 3 times, feeling my anger build with each pass. Marcus wasn't her fiancé. He was her ticket to senior partner. I picked up my phone and called him. "Rick, hey, listen, about the party. We need to meet," I interrupted. "Tonight. Our old spot." "What's this about?" "Just trust me. Please." There was a long pause. "Okay. 9 o'clock? I'll be there." Our old spot was the storage unit where Marcus's parents' garage used to be. After they moved, Marcus had kept the space, filled it with boxes of old computer equipment and memories. We'd agreed years ago to always keep it, no matter what. A reminder of where we started. I got there early, printed emails in hand. When Marcus arrived, he looked tired. Older than he had at the party. Nice to get away from all that, huh? I said, trying to keep my tone light. He smiled weakly. You have no idea. The wedding planning is insane. Victoria has opinions about everything. I bet she does. I handed him the folder. Marcus, you need to see this. He opened it, started reading. I watched his expression change, confusion, then disbelief, then something that looked like pain. You hired a private investigator? On my fiancée? Look at the pattern, Marcus. 3 relationships, 3 exits, 3 times she gained something professionally. People date. Relationships end. That doesn't make her a con artist. Read the emails. He did. I watched him read about himself being called boring but bankable. About Victoria's plan to exit gracefully after the merger. About her calculated strategy to remove me from his life. When he finished, he closed the folder carefully. These could be faked, he said quietly. Or taken out of context. Marcus. Why are you doing this? He looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before, doubt. Not about Victoria. About me. Is this because you're still stuck while I moved on? Is this jealousy? The words hit like a physical blow. I'm not stuck, Marcus. But you're about to be married to someone who sees you as a transaction. Or maybe you're seeing what you want to see because you can't handle that I have a life beyond our childhood friendship. He stood up. Stay away from Victoria. And maybe stay away from me for a while. He left. The door to the storage unit closed, and I sat there in the dark, surrounded by old computers and broken dreams. I'd tried to warn him the gentle way. Now I'd have to do it the hard way. And that meant revealing a secret I'd kept for 5 years. The next morning, I called an emergency board meeting. My assistant was confused. Boss, you've never attended a board meeting. You've been anonymous for 5 years. Are you sure about this? Set it up. Tell them Chen is requesting in-person attendance for the first time. Tell them it's urgent. What's this about? Conflict of interest. I'm going to present evidence. I hung up and opened my closet. In the back, behind years of hoodies and jeans, was one suit. Black, expensive, bought for a funeral I'd attended 3 years ago. I pulled it out, along with the leather briefcase I'd never used. Tomorrow, I'd stop being invisible. That night, I barely slept. I went over my presentation again and again. The evidence had to be ironclad. Victoria was a lawyer, she'd know how to deflect, how to create reasonable doubt. I needed to be perfect. By morning, I was ready. Marcus's company headquarters was a gleaming tower of glass and steel in the financial district. I'd never been inside before. As Chen, I'd only ever existed on paper. The lobby was all marble and modern art. The receptionist smiled professionally. Good morning. How can I help you? I'm here for the 9 o'clock board meeting. Name? Chen. Her smile faltered. She typed something into her computer, then looked at me with confusion. I'm sorry, Mr. Chen, there must be some mistake. The board meeting is executive level, I know. I'm a board member. She stared at my suit, at my face, trying to reconcile the name with the person. I'll call up. One moment. 2 minutes later, I was in an elevator heading to the 40th floor, escorted by a nervous junior assistant who kept glancing at me like I might disappear. The boardroom was exactly what I'd imagined. Long table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 8 people were already seated. Marcus was at the head of the table. Next to him, reviewing documents, was Victoria. The moment I walked in, her coffee cup stopped halfway to her lips. Marcus stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. Rick? What are you doing here? Good morning, everyone. I set my briefcase down and looked around the table. I'm Chen. The room went silent. The board chairman, an older man with silver hair, spoke first. I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. Chen is our largest individual shareholder. He's been with the company since founding, I finished. 15% equity, held since the garage days. I've been silent by choice. But I'm here now because we have a problem that needs to be addressed. All eyes turned to Victoria. She'd recovered from her initial shock and was now wearing her lawyer face, calm, controlled, calculating. Rick, this is highly irregular. If you have concerns, there are proper channels. You mean like the proper channels for disclosing that you're personally engaged to our CEO while your firm negotiates a merger that would directly benefit your partnership track? The room erupted in murmurs. Victoria's mask cracked, just for a second. Then she smiled, that same predatory smile from the party. This is a personal vendetta. Everyone can see that. Rick was humiliated at a social event, and now he's lashing out. Is that so? I opened my briefcase and pulled out the first folder. Then let's talk about patterns. I spent the next 20 minutes laying it out. Victoria's previous relationships, each one ending conveniently after she gained something professionally. The timeline of her engagement to Marcus compared to when her firm took on his company as a client. The emails where she mocked him, called him boring but bankable, planned her exit strategy. Marcus's face changed with every page. Confusion became understanding. Understanding became horror. Horror became something cold and hard that I'd never seen in him before. The board members leaned forward, reading the projected emails. Victoria's words, her plans, her calculations, all of it right there in black and white. This email, I pointed to the screen, dated 3 weeks ago. The partnership vote is next month. Once the Thornton deal is signed, I'll have the client relationship I need. Then I can gracefully end things. Those are private communications, taken out of context. Victoria's voice was sharp now, desperate. Then let's add context. Board, were you aware that Ms. Chen represented her engagement to Marcus as beginning after her firm took on this company as a client? The chairman nodded slowly. That's what we were told. Standard ethics disclosure. She got engaged 6 months before her firm signed the contract. She lied to your ethics board to hide the conflict of interest. Marcus finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Victoria, tell me this isn't true. She turned to him, and for a moment, I thought she might drop the act. Might finally be honest. Instead, she went on the attack. This is pathetic. She slammed her hands on the table. You're so threatened by Marcus's success that you'd sabotage his happiness. You're bitter, jealous, and you're using your money to manipulate this situation. Marcus asked you a question, I said quietly. Do you love him? The room held its breath. Victoria looked at Marcus. Then at me. Then at the board members watching her. This is a professional meeting, she said finally. My personal feelings are irrelevant. And there it was. Not even a denial. Just a deflection. The chairman cleared his throat. Ms. Chen, I think you should leave. Given the ethical violations presented here, your firm's contract with this company is terminated immediately. We'll be referring this matter to the State Bar Association. Victoria grabbed her briefcase, her performance finally over. At the door, she turned back one last time. You'll regret this, she said, looking directly at me. Both of you. Then she was gone. The board meeting concluded quickly after that. There were papers to sign, official notifications to draft. Marcus sat through all of it in silence, barely present. Finally, everyone else filed out, and it was just the two of us in that boardroom. We sat there for what felt like hours, neither of us speaking. Through the windows, the city moved on, oblivious to the small drama that had just unfolded 40 floors up. You saved my life, Marcus said finally. Again. What do you mean, again? When we were kids. In that garage. I was miserable back then. My parents wanted me to be something I wasn't. I felt like I was suffocating under all these expectations. Then I heard you playing piano in the music room after school. I stared at him. I didn't play piano. Wrong person, then. But the point stands. He smiled slightly. You gave me your money. All of it. Believed in me when nobody else did. Gave me a chance to build something. And now you've done it again, saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about being Arctichan sooner. Why didn't you? Because I didn't want this. I gestured around the boardroom. The attention, the scrutiny, people treating me differently because of money. I like being your friend, not your investor. I like traveling the world in hoodies, being nobody special. But you revealed yourself to save me. Every time. That's what brothers do. Marcus looked at me for a long moment, then said something I didn't expect. I have an idea. And I need your help. 2 years later, I was back in a coffee shop, laptop open, hoodie on. But this time, I wasn't alone. Marcus sat across from me, also in a hoodie, also with a laptop. Between us were pitch decks from a 23-year-old kid who dropped out of community college to build an app. What do you think? Marcus asked. I looked at the numbers, at the kid's passion in his executive summary, at the rough but promising prototype. I think he reminds me of someone. Me too. We'd launched Garage Capital 18 months ago, a venture fund specifically for non-traditional founders. College dropouts, self-taught programmers, people who'd taken unconventional paths to entrepreneurship. The kind of people most investors overlooked. We'd funded 50 companies so far. 37 were still operating. 12 had exited. 3 were on track to become unicorns. And every single founder had that same fire we'd had at 16, that stubborn refusal to let anyone tell them they couldn't do it. The kid walked in right on time, nervous but determined. He wore a hoodie too. Mr. Chen, Mr. He paused, looking at me. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name in the emails. Rick. Just Rick. Thank you for meeting with me. I know my background isn't traditional. That's exactly why we wanted to meet you, Marcus interrupted. The best founders aren't the ones with the most credentials. They're the ones who can't imagine doing anything else. We spent an hour talking about his vision, his challenges, his dreams. By the end, we'd agreed to invest $2 million for 10% equity. As he left, practically floating out of the coffee shop, Marcus turned to me. Victoria reached out last week. Oh? First time in 2 years. Just 2 words, you won. What did you say? Nothing. Deleted it. This was never about winning. He was right. This was about protecting the people you love from people who see love as a transaction. About staying true to yourself even when the world tells you to change. About remembering where you came from and using your success to lift others up. 3 months later, I was standing in that same garage-turned-storage unit, now converted into a small office space. Marcus was getting married, for real this time. His fiancée was Emma, a middle school science teacher he'd met at a garage capital pitch event. She'd been there supporting one of her former students who was presenting. Marcus had been immediately drawn to her genuine enthusiasm, her lack of pretension, her sneakers at a formal event. The engagement party was in this garage. No chandeliers, no string quartet. Just pizza, beer, and the people who actually mattered. Emma wore jeans and a casual top. Thank you, she said to me quietly. Marcus told me everything. Thank you for saving him. I didn't save him. I just reminded him what he deserved, someone who loves him for real. Still, not everyone would do what you did. Risk a friendship to tell a hard truth. Marcus walked over, 2 beers in hand. He gave one to me, raised his in a toast. To old friends and new beginnings. To people who prove that success has nothing to do with diplomas and everything to do with determination. We clinked bottles and drank. Later that night, after everyone had left and the garage was quiet again, I sat on the old workbench where we'd built Marcus's first prototype. My phone buzzed. A message from Victoria, her first in 2 years beyond that deleted attempt. I underestimated you. That was my mistake. I typed back, you didn't underestimate me. You estimated me perfectly, by my clothes, my education, my appearance. That was your mistake. You never looked deeper. I deleted the message without sending it. She wasn't worth my words. Because here's what I'd learned over 20 years of friendship, 5 years of being a silent millionaire, and 2 years of building something meaningful with my best friend. The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building something so good, so true, so meaningful that the people who tried to diminish you become irrelevant. Victoria had seen me as nothing, a dropout, a failure, an embarrassment. She'd tried to cut me out of Marcus's life because she thought I had no value. But value isn't measured in diplomas or designer clothes or country club memberships. It's measured in the lives you touch, the people you lift up, the truth you tell even when it's hard. And by that metric, I was richer than Victoria would ever be. Marcus sent out wedding invitations 2 months later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. No engagement party drama this time. Just love, real and simple and honest. I was his best man. My speech was short. 20 years ago, 2 kids shook hands in a garage. One of them believed in the other when nobody else did. Today, I get to stand here and watch that kid, now a man, marry someone who sees him the way I always have, exactly as he is, worth everything. Emma cried. Marcus cried. Even I might have teared up a little. After the ceremony, as we stood outside under string lights hung between trees, Marcus pulled me aside. Remember when you said friendship was an investment? Yeah. Best return I ever got. I smiled. Same here, brother. Same here. So what happened to Victoria? Last I heard, she'd moved to a different city, taken a position at another firm. The Bar Association investigated her ethics violations but nothing came of it, not enough evidence for formal charges, just enough to damage her reputation in certain circles. She never made senior partner. And Marcus? He and Emma are expecting their first child. Garage Capital just closed our Series B funding round. We're expanding internationally, looking for overlooked founders in developing countries who remind us of ourselves. As for me, I'm still traveling the world in hoodies, still meeting founders in coffee shops, still being underestimated by people who think success has a specific look. And I wouldn't change a thing. Because being underestimated is the greatest advantage you can have. Let them look at the hoodie and assume you're nobody. Let them think you're just a dropout with failed dreams. Then show them exactly who you are. Not with words. Not with boasts. With actions. With truth. With the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth doesn't come from what others think of them. That's the real power. Not money, not status, not revenge. Just knowing who you are and refusing to let anyone convince you you're less than that. Victoria learned that lesson the hard way. But she learned it. And maybe, somewhere in a different city with a different life, she thinks about the dropout she dismissed at that engagement party. The one who turned out to be worth $500 million. The one who destroyed her carefully laid plans with nothing but truth and a willingness to stand up for someone he loved. Or maybe she doesn't think about me at all. Either way, I'm good. Because I'm sitting in a coffee shop in Barcelona, reviewing pitch decks from young founders who remind me of myself, living a life I love, doing work that matters. And that's the best revenge of all, not needing revenge. Just living well. If this story resonated with you, drop a like. And comment below, what's the biggest assumption someone made about you that turned out to be completely wrong? I read every comment. Until then, remember, never judge someone by their hoodie. You have no idea who you're really talking to.